Project Blue, going on about a year of owning this car, and I have just absolutely loved it. In that entire year, it has been such a good car, decent gas mileage. It's pretty peppy when it needs to be. But so far, what I've done with it, what I want to speak to is the transmission. But some of the other things I've done, I went with sort of a custom exhaust. I have a MagnaFlow high flow catalytic converter, and then I went to an exhaust shop and they put on what's called a turbo muffler. So we've got Sierra up on jack stands right now. What we're going to do is we're going to splice in the wire for the VSS converter. As you can see right here, it's that gray plug on the right there. Hang on, better light. There you go.
Far right if you're disconnecting from the ECU.
Plug on, it's connected to the ECU, which is on the right side of the car, and it's the plug on the far right. So what we're going to do is splice that in, and hopefully it won't be too difficult. And then we'll go and swap out the actual speed sensor plug, which we've got right over here. So when putting on a Z1 transmission onto a 2005 Civic Si, which is the K20 A3 motor, so basically what I'm doing is putting a Z1 transmission on an A3 motor. This is the plug you'll need. It is a Z1 speed sensor plug. Put that right there. And this is the original speed sensor plug right here. So this is, if it'll focus there. It's not gonna focus too good. So basically what we've got here, this is the top one represents the original speed plug, so what's in the car right now. This middle one represents this speed plug right here that's about to be put in. So what you're gonna do is take, so the green and white is the VSS signal, the black and yellow is the VSS voltage, and the solid black is the VSS ground. So the way that it's going to be wired, once you put the wiring from there onto here, and if you'll take a look here, well, I'll get to that in a second. The finished product is going to be VSS ground VSS ground on the top, VSS signal in the middle, and VSS voltage on the closest side to you. Now, the way that this plug is, when it goes in, the way that it's wired, is we have it, the clip side goes on the bottom, and that's the way that this diagram shows it. It's pretty simple. I found that diagram on searching it up on Google. So if you need to find it, it's there. But we're over here.
Here, hand off.
What do you need? Here's the camera.
Okay. Is it recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
All right. So this is what it's going to look like before you disconnect your plug. This is the one you need right here, this gray one. So this is the one we're going to be working with. So I will mark up the wires we need. I have some colored electrical tape here that I use for keeping track of the wires so I don't lose them in the bird's nest here. And once I get the wires taped up, we'll get back to you.
Alright, we'll come back to you with the finished product. When you're trying to access the ECU, you actually have to pull out the glove box because there's a bolt that's hidden right behind it. So the ECU is held in with 3 bolts, 2 at the bottom and then 1 at the top. And so that looks like this right here.
Got 2 at the bottom, got 1 at the top.
Out in the light, the ECU sits in the car up like this. So the 2 on the bottom and the 1 at the top. You have to remove the glove box, which is pretty simple. It's really easy to find those bolts. They're just right up in there. Basically, I'm going to go over the finished product for the K2 VSS converter. This is the finished product. Here it is coming down. You look at here. That is it wired in. So got that all spliced in, and then it doesn't give you, you're not done there, because once you're plugged in and you're receiving signal, the speedometer will be off, like completely off. So what you'll need to do is buy a VSS converter module, and that is made by K2. Well, the one that I got is made by K2. This prevents me from having to buy an ECU, which eventually I want to do. I want to do the on data, the K Pro version, the K Pro whatever version is new.